Do you ever wonder why it is you just can't seem to rank up? Do you ever sit there playing hours of Valorant a day and end up not even improving at the end of it all? You grind for hours, play for days, and aim practice a bit on occasion, yet you can't seem to get your RR any higher. And thankfully, there's reasons for this, and today we're going to dive into the 5 worst habits we see hold back the average player. The first bad habit we have is, well, being last alive constantly. Now, there's nothing wrong with being the last one alive, sure. But when it happens every single round, maybe it's time to look at what you're doing, as opposed to blaming your team. Valorant is a team game after all, and players tend to forget the value they bring to the table as a teammate is worth more than them running off alone. Some players also have a bad habit of not listening to the plan of what their team is trying to do that round, and this can cause a whole round to fall apart. There's one easy way to fix this. Simply pay attention to what your team wants to do and play around them. If your team is fully committing to a push, you shouldn't be last alive sitting in A main. You should commit with them. Sometimes all your team really needs to win a round, or even the game, is that last teammate to cooperate with their plan. If there are situations where you don't agree with your team's plans, feel free to pitch new ideas to redirect the way the round is played. Sometimes you will be last alive, and that's just how the game works. But it should rarely occur that you are the last one alive every single round in a game. If you are the last one alive every single round, just take a step back and think about why that is. If the answer is that your team's pushing a site and you're sitting middle, you should adjust the way you're playing to assist your team more in the next rounds. And if you're under the impression that you need somebody cut off from the rest of the team during a push, you're incorrect. This is known as a lurk, and while it is powerful, you shouldn't be lurking every round unless it's working to help you win rounds. It doesn't matter if you lurked and got 2 kills. If your whole team is dead before you get those kills, you made no impact to assist them. If the answer is that your team is losing on the site they're supposed to hold constantly, try to help them out on that site. All we're trying to say here is being last alive isn't inherently bad, but making a habit of doing it every single round, even by accident, it requires you to think about why it keeps happening. This can help you better adjust to suit your team's needs and get you more involved in the round.
Keep in mind, if you're looking to climb, by far the most important thing for you to master is the fundamentals. This goes far beyond things like crosshair placement and counter-strafing too. It also includes things you probably don't even realize you're doing wrong, like peeking, spacing with teammates, or even just where you choose to stand. The players who are consistently able to drop 30 in their matches are masters of all these things, and you could be too now with our Aim God Masterclass. It's expertly designed to teach you all the fundamentals you need to know in just one course. Our goal is to have this course teach you everything you need to know, which is exactly why we're constantly updating it as users submit feedback. The game's always developing, and that's why our website is too. With new courses posted every single month, you can be sure that you're always ahead of the curve when it comes to your mechanics. On top of that, we also offer a rank improvement guarantee. So if you don't climb while using our service, you don't pay. We know it sounds insane, but our number one priority is to be a standing name in the community for years to come. And the only way to do that is to create the best product we can. Check it out using the link below.
Does this look like you? Your team of 5 players is lined up outside of B main ascent. You're ready to execute. Your team throws smokes out. Your jet dashes into switch, but a molly comes in after the jet. Your jet dies. One of your teammates ran through the molly and died. And now it's you and 2 teammates sitting behind a smoke in B main, wondering what in the world went wrong. You guys have tried to push for 3 rounds now, and you've tried more than just B main. What's the issue here? Well, if I was there watching your team, I would point out the major flaw. You've got to slow it down. You don't have to rush at the start of every round. Once you get into higher ranks, rushing every round becomes less common. It's not a great habit, and it's not a great way to play the game. If it works though, hey, by all means, keep rushing. But it's essential that if you're getting shut down on your pushes, you step back for a second. Slow down your gameplay. See what the enemy defenders are doing, and play a bit reactive for a change. There are a few things you can easily do if rushing is not working, and you can direct your team to do so fairly easily. Baiting utility is insanely important. The less utility the enemy team has when it comes time to push onto their side, the easier it is for you to, in turn, win that team fight. It may sound complicated, but all you really need to do is show some presence on one side of the map. This can look like footsteps, a Sova dart, or a flash from your team on the side, or just gunshots. This will, in turn, cause the enemy team to burn some smokes, maybe a molly, maybe even a Sova dart if you're lucky. Even at the highest ranks, baiting utility is an important concept to grasp. Unfortunately, at the lower ranks, it always tends to look like hitting sites right when the barriers drop. This can work. It's advised to bait some utility though if you're having issues with the standard push. Keep track of the utility the enemy team is burning, and show presence in areas you want the team to use their utility. You can also see if the defenders are getting overly aggressive. If they are, you can shift to a very passive attack side. This can look like having a few players waiting and staring at the angle that the defenders peek often. If the defenders are overly aggressive, it's essential you catch on to this quick. This can allow you to set up traps for when they peek. Getting free kills on attack makes hitting a site 10 times easier when it comes down to it. Killing a defender spreads the defense side more thin, making their defense weak in certain areas. You can then find where they're weak and attack that area. Combine that with baiting utility and you have yourself a pretty free take if you play it right. There are tons of ways to play out a round, and rushing is only one of them. Don't default to rushing every single round though, especially if it's not working. Why do you need to check your map before swinging? Well, it gathers crucial information before you actually swing. Information like where your teammates are at, specifically. It can also tell you how many enemies there are in some situations. Have we mentioned that Valorant is a team game? This means by principle, if you have bad team play understanding, it's definitely going to hold you back. And using the radar effectively and before a peak can assist you greatly in performing team plays. Making a habit out of checking your radar before a swing is pretty great. It can allow you to see teammates that could be used to swing with you, so you're not swinging alone. You can also see that maybe your teammate's not in a good position where they can effectively take a fight with the enemy before you. The second your teammate starts fighting, you swing into the enemies and fight them while they're focusing on your teammate. This is called peeking off of your teammate, and it's not to be confused with baiting. Players will commonly set this up on defense or in simple 1v2 situations. Incorporating this into your gameplay and understanding how to do it is essential. It can be a great way to turn any 1v2 into an almost unlosable situation, or to rack up easier kills on the defense side. Setting up bait plays are essential. They create free kills, and usually result in you and your partner getting at least 2 to 3 kills if executed properly. This can look a whole lot better than swinging and dying to an enemy when your teammate's already in a prime position to play with you. The radar can also let you know if there are multiple enemies sometimes, due to revealing or informational utility in the game. This can deter you from swinging into multiple opponents, allowing you to hold onto your life a little bit longer and opt for a safer way to play. The radar can also help you see who exactly is with you. If you have an initiator, you can ask for utility to help you fight, like a flash or a drone. One more thing checking the radar does is reminding you that you might be completely alone. In this situation, sometimes it's best to just fall back, rejoin your team, or play a little more passively. Implementing these team play mechanics into your game right now has absolutely no negative downside. If you understand how to do these, you'll be ahead of the average player who just runs it down by a long shot. We've listed quite a few things off for you here, and it's all done with one simple glance at the radar. Just make sure your radar is set up so you can gather as much information as possible as fast as possible, and you'll be all set to implement this into your gameplay immediately. We know it's easy to get upset after losing a close round, and to pin the blame on simply losing fights. You then decide that, hey, you're playing well, you might as well keep queuing. Then you watch from the sidelines as your RR plummets down into the depths of low elo. You will eventually gain it back, but you're still in the same place after you gain it back. It's a vicious cycle, and it's gotta be broken. Spam queuing kinda sucks, and it might be for reasons other than just bad teammates or bad personal play. It's the fact that you're in a bad mental state. You're also playing games over and over, and they start to blend together as you start to move into autopilot. So when you find yourself spam queuing games and losing, just do yourself a favor. Break the habit. Take a break. Don't get in the mindset that the only way to get better is to just spam ranked games, because there are hundreds of other ways to improve that don't involve you losing your precious RR. Ranked will always be there for you to come back to. So rather than play it like there's no tomorrow, reset your mentality. Go outside, take a break, watch your gameplay, and look for issues that you're having. Aim practice. Anything, just do anything other than spamming games and losing. It's not fun to lose, and it's not fun to D-rank, but so many players have the habit of tilt queuing and running it down only to regret it later. So do yourself and your RR a huge solid, look for ways to improve your gameplay without playing ranked. And if we can't get through to you, and you want to keep the habit of spam queuing ranked games, just make sure you're playing with purpose. Playing with a purpose, like improving on team play or focusing on aim, it'll be a lot better than just aimlessly queuing. It'll also feel a lot more rewarding, which will help you enjoy playing a bit more. It's easy to hit a wall in Valorant, and a lot of times it's due to players just not learning from the rounds they play. They play with no purpose, and they assume that they'll just get better, without actually putting forth any effort to learn while they're playing. So if you're a spam queue player and you want to keep it up, at least learn from the games that you're spamming. And for our final tip, we suggest that you stop overthinking things. There's obviously so much information floating around for Valorant and improving at it as a whole. Avoid overthinking things. You should focus on what you know you're bad at and polish the weak areas as you go. Try and ignore common myths, like muscle memory being key to aim, and that there's only one correct way to do things. Players often hit walls when they're thinking about way too many things at once. Sometimes you don't need a double fake in order to win a round. Ranked play specifically and personal improvement does not match up to VCT standards. The game is simple. It's a team game that requires you to use your brain to an extent. But keep things as simple as you possibly can. Don't overwhelm yourself with intricate and complex strategies, because generally in ranked, nobody's capable of coordinating that well. Split takes where you split your team up and hit the sites are amazing. Running a single fake sometimes can be great, and standard executes are standard for a reason. Defending is a simple game of covering ground with limited forces, and it's a game of giving up space when needed and holding your ground when required. Valorant is extremely simple, and with a lot of guide content, they pick it apart either much too simply, or they dive in so in-depth that the standard player trying to improve is left with too many things to take away. They're not going to retain anything. You don't need all the fancy equipment. You don't need the best settings to optimize visibility, and you don't need to implement every strategy you find online in your gameplay to rank up. Stop switching to your knife constantly. Stop trying to do all the fancy TikTok tech that isn't really all that useful. Just play the simple game that is Valorant. Alright, to wrap it up, play with your team, play off your team, set up crossfires, and win rounds using your fundamental understandings and team play understandings. Keep things simple. You don't need an hour-long aim routine to improve, and you don't need VCT strats to win in ranked, even in Radiant matches. Just focus on understanding the basic concepts and improving your weakest areas of gameplay. This is how you will consistently improve. When you hit a wall, just reapproach from a different perspective. We sincerely hope that you gain some knowledge here. I think the overarching theme of this video is just to remind you about all the basic habits that tend to be lost on the majority of players. The amount of Immortal games I play where players just have some of the absolute worst habits, it shocks me, it surprises me. So keep these in mind as you play, and these 5 bad habits will never hold you back again.